The day starts like any other. I wake up to the sound of the alarm, the dull hum of the coffee machine echoing through the kitchen. The scent of freshly brewed coffee usually brings a sense of comfort, but today it does nothing to ease the unease gnawing at me. Something is off, though I can't quite put my finger on it. I pour myself a cup, glancing at the clock. My wife Rachel is already up, dressed impeccably as always. But there's something different about her today. She's distant, her eyes barely meeting mine as she sips her coffee, lost in thought. I can't shake the feeling that there's a growing distance between us, something unspoken hanging in the air. I, a mid-40s corporate lawyer, have built a life around control and predictability. It's what I do: analyze, strategize, win. My marriage, too, has always been a reflection of that. We've been married for 15 years, and until recently I believe we were solid. But the past few weeks have chipped away at that belief. There's a coldness to Rachel's touch now, a detachment that leaves me restless. Our son Josh enters the kitchen quietly, his usual bright smile absent. He's been unusually quiet lately, withdrawn in a way that doesn't sit right with me. He's 12 at that age where moods can shift like the wind, but this is different. I've asked him if everything's okay, but he just shrugs, saying nothing's wrong. I know better. Rachel kisses Josh on the head, but there's no warmth in it. She grabs her purse and heads out the door without another word, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my son, who barely touches his breakfast. The silence between us is heavy, filled with things unsaid. Later, I retreat to my study, trying to lose myself in work. The steady rhythm of my career has always been a refuge, a place where everything makes sense. But today, even that fails to distract me. I stare at the legal briefs on my desk, but the words blur together, meaningless. My mind keeps drifting back to Rachel's coldness, to Josh's silence. The calm shatters when Josh bursts into my study, his face pale, tears streaming down his cheeks. My heart lurches. Something's terribly wrong. I kneel in front of him, trying to steady my voice. "Josh, what happened?" He's sobbing now, words tumbling out in a rush. "Dad, I saw something terrible." His voice breaks, and he looks at me with a mix of fear and confusion. "What did you see, son?" I ask, my own heart pounding in my chest, dreading his answer. His words come out in a whisper, but they hit me like a sledgehammer. "I walked into your bedroom and saw Mom on her knees with another man." The room spins, my world crashing down around me as the horror of what he's just said sinks in. The world around me collapses as Josh's words echo in my mind. My hands tremble as I pull him close, trying to comfort him, but the truth hangs heavy between us. "Are you sure?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper, desperate for any chance that this is some horrible misunderstanding. Josh nods, his tear-streaked face pressed against my chest. "I saw everything, Dad," he says, his voice shaking. "I didn't want to see, but I did. She was with him, and he threatened me, said he'd hurt me if I told anyone." Rage boils within me, a cold, hard fury that blots out everything else. I can't let this go. I need answers. I need the truth. My hands tighten into fists, the image of my wife, Rachel, with another man burning in my mind. How could she? How could she betray us like this? I find her in the living room, casually scrolling through her phone, as if nothing has changed, as if our world hasn't just been ripped apart. I walk up to her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Rachel, we need to talk." She looks up, surprised by the intensity in my voice. "What is it?" She asks, but there's something in her eyes, a flicker of guilt, of fear. She knows. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Josh told me what he saw." Her face pales, and for a moment, she's frozen. But then she shakes her head, a forced laugh escaping her lips. "What are you talking about? Josh must be mistaken. You know how kids can be." But her words feel hollow, and the denial only fuels my anger. "Don't lie to me, Rachel. He saw you with another man in our bedroom. He heard you, and now you're trying to tell me it didn't happen?" She stands up, her phone slipping from her hand onto the couch. I can explain," she stammers. but I cut her off. Explain what? How you've been sneaking around behind my back? How you brought some stranger into our home? Into our bed? How you threatened our son to keep your secret? Her eyes fill with tears and she reaches out to me, but I step back, refusing to let her touch me. It wasn't like that, she whispers, her voice cracking. It was a mistake. I never meant for it to happen. A mistake? I spit the word back at her, the bitterness coating my tongue. How many times, Rachel? How many mistakes have you made? She looks away, unable to meet my gaze, and the silence that follows is deafening. I turn away, my mind racing. I need to know who this man is. I need to understand how deep this betrayal goes. That night I lie awake in bed, the space beside me cold and empty. Rachel is downstairs on the couch where she belongs. Sleep eludes me, my thoughts spinning in a relentless cycle of anger and pain. How could I have been so blind? How long has this been going on? And who is this man who dared to step into my life, to destroy everything I've built? I get up, unable to stay still, and head to the study. There I start going through Rachel's things, her emails, her text messages, her social media. I'm looking for a name, a clue, anything that will lead me to him. It doesn't take long. I find a trail of messages, hidden in a folder she probably thought I'd never find. His name is David, and from the tone of their conversations, this isn't just a fling. It's been going on for months, maybe longer. The messages are explicit, the kind of details I never wanted to know, but now I can't unread them. They talk about meetings, about how much they enjoy each other's company, about their plans. Plans that have nothing to do with me or Josh. They talk about us like we're obstacles, like we're nothing. The rage that had cooled into a simmer bursts into flames. I'm not going to let this go. This man has to pay. Rachel has to pay. I can't let them get away with this. I spend the next few days in a daze, barely speaking to Rachel or Josh. My mind is consumed with thoughts of revenge, of what I'll do when I find David. I picture his face, the smug satisfaction he must feel, thinking he's won, thinking he's taken something from me, but he has no idea who he's dealing with. One evening, after Rachel leaves for what she claims is a work meeting, I decide to confront her. I follow her, staying a few cars behind, my heart pounding in my chest. She drives to a hotel on the other side of town, and I watch as she checks in, looking over her shoulder as if she knows someone might be watching. I park the car and wait, the minutes stretching into hours as I sit there, the tension in my chest tightening like a vice. Finally, I see them. Rachel walking out of the hotel with David, laughing at something he said, her hand casually resting on his arm. They look so comfortable together, like they've done this 100 times before. The sight of them together is like a knife twisting in my gut. I can't just sit here and watch. I step out of the car and follow them, my footsteps silent on the pavement. I'm close enough to hear their conversation, their low voices murmuring in the night air. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I can't let this continue. I feel the cold, calculated rage building inside me, pushing me forward. I'm not thinking clearly. All I can focus on is the need to confront them, to make them understand the pain they've caused. They stop by David's car, and as Rachel leans in for a kiss, I snap. I stride forward, my hands clenched into fists, and grab David by the shoulder, spinning him around to face me. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I hiss, my voice low and dangerous. David looks startled, but only for a moment. Then he smirks, his eyes flicking between Rachel and me. "I think that's pretty obvious, don't you?" His arrogance is like gasoline on the fire. I shove him, hard, and he stumbles back against the car. "You think you can just walk into my life, take what's mine, and walk away?" I seethe, my voice rising. Rachel steps between us, her hands outstretched, trying to calm me down. "Stop it, both of you. This isn't helping anything." But I'm past the point of listening. I push her aside, my focus solely on David. "You're going to regret this," I say, my voice cold and flat. "You have no idea what you've done." David's smirk fades as he sees the seriousness in my eyes. Look, man, I didn't mean for it to get this far. Let's just walk away from this. No one needs to get hurt, but it's too late for that. Hurt? You don't know the meaning of the word. I spit, my anger boiling over. I don't even realize what I'm doing until I feel the satisfying crunch of my fist connecting with his jaw. He staggers back, and I follow, not giving him a chance to recover. Rachel is screaming now, begging me to stop, but her voice is just background noise. All I can think about is making him pay, making him suffer for every moment of pain he's caused me and my family. Finally, I stop, panting, as David slumps to the ground, blood trickling from his nose and mouth. I stand over him, my chest heaving, as the adrenaline starts to fade, leaving only a cold, empty feeling inside. Rachel rushes to his side, cradling his head in her lap, her eyes filled with tears. "Why did you do this?" she sobs, looking up at me with a mix of fear and anger. I stare down at them, my heart pounding in my chest. "Because you made me," I say, my voice hollow. "You both made me." I turn and walk away, leaving them there in the dark, my mind already racing with what comes next. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. I wake up the next morning, my knuckles bruised and my mind still clouded with the events of last night. I can't shake the image of Rachel cradling David's bloody face, her tears mingling with his blood. The rage that drove me to confront him hasn't dissipated. It's only morphed into something darker, something more dangerous. I can't go back to how things were. The betrayal is a wound that keeps bleeding, refusing to close. Rachel tries to talk to me, tries to explain, but I'm done with her excuses. She's a liar, a cheater, and now she's someone I don't recognize. I tell her to stay away from me, to leave me alone, and she finally gets the message. She retreats, but I can feel her watching me, like she's waiting for me to snap. I can't stop thinking about David, though. He's the source of all of this, the intruder who invaded my life, my home. I can't let him walk away unscathed. The need for revenge gnaws at me, keeping me awake at night. I know it's wrong, that I should let it go, but I can't. He needs to pay. I start by digging into his life. As a lawyer, I have access to resources most people don't. It doesn't take long to find out everything about him, where he lives, where he works, who his friends are. I find out that he's a consultant, one of those smooth-talking types who makes a living off other people's problems. He's well-liked, respected even, but I know the truth. He's a snake, slithering his way into other people's lives and destroying them from the inside. I follow him for days, learning his routines, his habits. He's a creature of habit, which makes him predictable, easy to track. I watch him meet with clients, laugh with friends, and every time I see him smile, it fuels my hatred. I want to wipe that smile off his face for good. Rachel tries to intervene, pleading with me to stop. She's scared. I can see it in her eyes, but she doesn't understand. She thinks this is about the affair, about my pride being hurt, but it's more than that. It's about justice, about making sure he never does this to anyone else. I tell her to stay out of it, that this is between me and him, and for once, she listens. I decide to start small, to make him suffer in ways he won't see coming. I hack into his emails, his bank accounts, finding ways to disrupt his life without him knowing it's me. I cancel his credit cards, send incriminating emails to his boss, mess with his car's GPS so he's always late for meetings. It's satisfying to watch him squirm, to see the cracks start to form in his perfect little life. But it's not enough. The more I torment him, the more I realize that I want something bigger, something that will leave a lasting mark. I want him to feel the pain I feel, to know what it's like to have everything ripped away from you. I start planning something more personal, something that will hit him where it hurts the most. I find out about his wife, Lila. She's beautiful, successful, everything Rachel once was to me. They don't have kids, but they have a life together, a home that they've built. I know it's wrong, that she's innocent in all of this, but I can't help myself. I start watching her too, learning her routines, figuring out how to get close to her. It's easy, really. She's kind, trusting, the type of person who sees the good in everyone. I approach her at a coffee shop one day, pretending to be someone else, a stranger just passing through town. We talk and she laughs at my jokes, her eyes sparkling in a way that makes me hate David even more. How could he have everything and still want more? How could he throw away someone like her for a fling with my wife? We start meeting regularly, and it doesn't take long for her to open up to me. She talks about David, about their marriage, about the little things that bother her. I listen, sympathizing, all the while laying the groundwork for what's to come. I'm patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. It happens one evening when she invites me to her home. David's away on a business trip, and she doesn't want to be alone. We sit in their living room, drinking wine, and I can feel the tension building. She's nervous, unsure, but I know how to play the game. I lean in, touching her arm, letting the moment stretch out until she leans in too. The kiss is soft at first, hesitant, but then it deepens, becoming something more. I feel a twisted sense of satisfaction as I pull her closer, knowing that I'm about to destroy everything David holds dear. It's a dark, perverse pleasure, but I don't care. This is what he deserves. But then something shifts. As Lila's lips move against mine, I realize that this isn't what I want. The anger, the desire for revenge, it all feels hollow, empty. I pull back, my heart pounding in my chest, and look into her eyes. She's confused, hurt, and I realize that I've become exactly what I hate. I've become David. I stand up abruptly, muttering an excuse about needing to leave, and rush out of the house, leaving Lila standing there, bewildered. I drive aimlessly for hours, the weight of what I've done crushing me. I've lost myself in this quest for revenge, lost sight of who I am, of what really matters. I know I can't keep going down this path. I've crossed too many lines already, done things I never thought I was capable of. But I can't just walk away, not with everything that's happened. I need to find a way to end this, to make things right, but I don't know how. When I finally return home, Rachel is waiting for me. She looks tired, defeated, and I can see that this is tearing her apart too. She tries to talk to me, but I brush her off, heading to my study instead. I sit there in the dark, staring at the wall, trying to figure out my next move. The situation spirals out of control the next day. David shows up at my office, his face still bruised from our last encounter. He's furious, threatening to go to the police, to ruin me if I don't back off. But there's something else in his eyes, a glint of fear that tells me he's not as confident as he pretends to be. I try to stay calm, to keep my composure, but the anger is still there, bubbling just beneath the surface. I can't let him win, can't let him think he's gotten the best of me. But I also can't afford to make any more mistakes. I need to be smart about this, to find a way to take him down without destroying myself in the process. As he leaves, he makes one final threat, something about my son, and that's when I snap. The rage that I've been holding back explodes, and I lunge at him, my fist connecting with his face, his chest, his ribs. He tries to fight back, but I'm stronger, fueled by a fury that I can't control. I don't stop until he's lying on the ground, gasping for breath, his eyes wide with fear. I stand over him, my chest heaving, and for a moment I consider finishing it, ending this once and for all. But then I hear a voice, my son's voice, calling my name, and I realize that I've gone too far. I step back, my hands shaking, and look at the damage I've done. David is broken, bleeding, but still alive. I turn and walk away, my mind racing with the consequences of what I've just done. This isn't over, but I know now that I need to find a different way to handle it, a way that doesn't involve destroying myself in the process. David's threats echo in my mind as I drive home, my knuckles still sore from the last punch. The adrenaline has worn off, leaving behind a hollow ache in my chest. I underestimated him, thought I could just bully him into submission. But now he's coming after me, after my family, and I can feel the walls closing in. When I get home, Rachel is waiting. She looks at me with a mix of fear and frustration, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "What happened?" she demands, her voice shaking. "He threatened us," I say, not bothering to sugarcoat it. "He's not backing down." Rachel's face goes pale, and she sinks onto the couch, her hands trembling. "What are we going to do?" "I don't know," I admit, and it's the first time I've felt this lost, this out of control. I've always prided myself on having the answers, on being the one who can handle anything. But this is different. David has resources, connections, and I've pushed him too far. The tension in the house is palpable, a ticking time bomb that could go off at any moment. Josh is quieter than ever, his eyes constantly darting between us, sensing the fear we're trying to hide. I try to reassure him, but the words feel empty, hollow. How can I protect him when I can't even protect myself? Days pass, and I feel like I'm living on borrowed time. I barely sleep, constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every time the phone rings, my heart skips a beat, wondering if it's David, if he's finally made his move. But the calls never come, and the silence is almost worse. Then one night, I get a text. It's from an unknown number, but I know it's him. The message is simple: "We need to talk. Tonight. Come alone." I stare at the screen, my mind racing. This is it, the moment everything comes to a head. I know it's a trap, that he's going to try to get the upper hand, but I can't just ignore it. If I don't go, he'll escalate, and I can't risk that. I tell Rachel I'm going out, not giving her any details. She doesn't ask, just watches me with those sad, tired eyes that have become all too familiar. I hate what we've become, the trust that's been shattered between us, but there's no time to dwell on that now. I drive to the location he sent me, an old abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It's the perfect place for a confrontation, isolated, away from prying eyes. My hands are slick with sweat as I park the car and step out, the cool night air doing little to calm my nerves. David is already there, leaning against his car, a smirk on his face as he sees me approach. He looks too confident, too at ease, and it sets my teeth on edge. I stop a few feet away from him, keeping my distance. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice cold and hard. He shrugs, pushing off the car and taking a step toward me. "I think you know what I want. I want you to back off, to leave me and Rachel alone." "That's not going to happen," I say, my hands clenching into fists. "You've already crossed the line. There's no going back." David's smirk fades and his eyes narrow. "You're making a mistake," he warns, his tone low and dangerous. "I have connections, people who can make your life very difficult. All I have to do is make a few calls, and everything you've built will come crashing down." His words send a chill down my spine, but I can't show weakness. I can't let him see how much power he has over me. "Do what you have to do," I say, forcing the words out. "But know this, I won't stop until you're out of our lives. One way or another, this ends tonight." For a moment, we just stand there, locked in a silent standoff, neither of us willing to back down. I can see the anger simmering beneath his calm exterior, the same fury that's been driving me for weeks. We're both teetering on the edge, ready to go over the cliff if it means taking the other down. And then he snaps. He lunges at me, and I barely have time to react before his fist connects with my jaw. Pain explodes in my head, but I don't go down. I stagger back, catching myself, and then I'm fighting back, my own fist swinging wildly. We're both past the point of reason, lost in a haze of violence and rage. The blows come hard and fast, each one fueled by months of pent-up aggression, of all the things left unsaid. It's brutal, savage, and I can feel the toll it's taking on my body, but I don't care. This is what I came here for, the final confrontation that's been building since the moment Josh told me the truth. But it's not just about David anymore. As I fight, I see flashes of Rachel, of the life we had, of the man I used to be. I'm fighting for more than just revenge. I'm fighting for my sanity, for some semblance of control in a world that's spiraling out of it. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, we both collapse, too exhausted to continue. I'm on my hands and knees, gasping for breath, my vision swimming. David is on the ground a few feet away, blood streaming from his nose, his eyes half closed. You're done, he gasps, his voice barely audible. I'll make sure of it. I struggle to my feet, wiping the blood from my mouth. No, I say, my voice hoarse. You're the one who's done. Stay away from my family, or I swear, I'll finish this. He laughs, a harsh, bitter sound that echoes through the empty warehouse. You think you've won? This isn't over, not by a long shot. You can't just walk away from this. I know he's right. This fight, this madness, it's consumed us both. There's no clean break, no easy way out. But I also know that I can't keep going like this. That if I don't stop, I'll lose everything that matters. I turn and walk away, leaving him there on the cold concrete. My body aches with every step, but I force myself to keep moving. I don't look back, not until I'm in my car. The door slams shut behind me. Then, and only then, do I allow myself to breathe, to let the reality of what just happened sink in. But the relief is short-lived. As I drive home, the adrenaline wears off, and the fear sets in. What have I done? What kind of man have I become? The questions swirl in my mind, each one more damning than the last. When I get home, Rachel is waiting again. She doesn't ask where I've been, doesn't push for answers. She just looks at me with those same tired eyes, and for the first time, I see the depth of the damage we've done to each other. This isn't just about David anymore. It's about us, about the broken pieces of our marriage that we can't seem to put back together. We sit in silence, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. I want to tell her that it's over, that we can move on, but I can't, because deep down I know that it's not over, that there's still a storm brewing on the horizon. And then the phone rings. It's late, too late for a normal call, and my heart sinks as I reach for the phone, dreading what I'll find on the other end. It's a number I don't recognize, but the voice is familiar. Mr. Anderson? It's a woman, her tone professional, but there's an edge to it that sets me on high alert. This is Detective Harris with the local PD. We need to talk. My blood runs cold. This is it. The other shoe finally dropping. David has made his move, and now the law's involved. I can feel Rachel's eyes on me, but I can't meet her gaze. Instead, I focus on the detective's voice, trying to keep my own steady. Of course, detective, I say, forcing a calm I don't feel. What's this about? We've had a report of an altercation involving you and a Mr. David Reed. We'd like you to come down to the station to answer a few questions. I close my eyes, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. This is the consequence of everything I've done, the price I have to pay for letting my anger control me. But I can't afford to panic now. I need to stay focused, to figure out how to handle this without losing everything. I'll be there, I say, my voice flat, emotionless. Give me 30 minutes. I hang up, the phone slipping from my fingers. Rachel is still watching me, her expression unreadable. What happened? She asks, her voice barely a whisper. I can't bring myself to lie, not anymore. It's David, I say, my voice hollow. He's pressing charges. Her eyes widen, and I can see the fear there, the same fear that's been gnawing at me for weeks. What are we going? The police station is a cold, sterile place. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows on the dull gray walls. I sit in an uncomfortable plastic chair, waiting for Detective Harris to call me in. My mind races, replaying the events of the past few weeks, trying to figure out where it all went so wrong. I feel a mix of anger and dread, knowing that the situation has spiraled far beyond my control. When Detective Harris finally calls me into her office, I'm struck by how calm she is. Her expression is unreadable as she gestures for me to sit across from her desk. She's young, maybe in her early 30s, with sharp eyes that miss nothing. I try to read her, to gauge what she knows, but she gives nothing away. Mr. Anderson, she begins, her voice professional but firm, we've received some troubling reports involving you and Mr. David Reed. I want to give you the opportunity to explain your side of the story. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself. David and we've had some issues, I say, keeping my tone measured. But it's not what you think. He's been involved with my wife, and things escalated. I'm not proud of how I handled it, but he's not innocent in all of this. She nods, jotting down notes, her eyes never leaving my face. I understand this is a difficult situation, but you need to realize the seriousness of the accusations against you. Mr. Reed has claimed that you assaulted him on multiple occasions and that you've been harassing him and his wife. I grit my teeth, trying to keep my composure. He's twisting things. Yes, there was a confrontation, but it was mutual. And as for his wife, I never harassed her. I crossed a line, but it wasn't like that. Harris leans back in her chair, studying me. Mr. Anderson, I need you to be completely honest with me. This isn't just about your actions. It's about the safety and well-being of everyone involved, including your son. From what I've gathered, he's been caught in the middle of all this, and that's not fair to him. Her mention of Josh hits me like a punch to the gut. I've been so consumed with my own anger and need for revenge that I've lost sight of what's truly important. My son is the one who suffered the most, and I've done nothing to protect him from the fallout. I understand, I say, my voice strained. I didn't know how to handle it. When Josh told me what he saw, I lost it. I felt like my entire life was falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. Harris softened slightly, her tone becoming more sympathetic. It's clear that you're going through a lot, but violence and harassment aren't the answer. You need to think about what's best for your son and how your actions are affecting him. I nod, my throat tight. I know, I've made a mess of things, but I want to make it right. I'll cooperate, do whatever it takes to fix this. She watches me for a moment, then sighs. I appreciate your willingness to cooperate. Here's what's going to happen. We'll need you to stay away from David Reed and his wife. Any further contact, and we'll have no choice but to take legal action. Understood? Understood, I say, relief and dread swirling inside me. This isn't over, not by a long shot, but at least it's a step towards some kind of resolution. When I leave the station, the weight of everything presses down on me, suffocating. I can't keep going like this, letting my anger drive me to the brink. I need to focus on what's left, on salvaging whatever I can of my life, for Josh's sake if nothing else. At home, Rachel is waiting, her anxiety written all over her face. She's been pacing, and when she sees me walk through the door, she rushes over, searching my face for answers. What happened? She asks, her voice trembling. Did they arrest you? I shake my head, feeling the exhaustion settle deep into my bones. No, but it's not good. They're watching us, waiting for one wrong move. We're on thin ice, Rachel. She bites her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm so sorry, I never wanted it to get this far. I just didn't know how to stop it. Her apology stings, a reminder of everything we've lost, but I'm too drained to argue. It doesn't matter now. We just need to figure out what to do next, how to move forward. But moving forward seems impossible. The trust between us is shattered, and every conversation feels like walking through a minefield, one wrong step away from disaster. We barely speak, each of us lost in our own thoughts, our own regrets. Josh is the only thing keeping me tethered to some semblance of normalcy. I try to spend more time with him, to be there for him in a way I haven't been since this all started. But even he's changed, the light in his eyes dimmed by everything he's witnessed. He looks at me differently now, with a mixture of fear and confusion, as if he's not sure who I am anymore. One night, as I'm tucking him into bed, he finally speaks up. Dad, are we going to be okay? His question catches me off guard, and I struggle to find the right words. We're going to figure it out, Josh, I promise. But even as I say it, I know it's a promise I'm not sure I can keep. The days blur together as I try to navigate the wreckage of my life. I go through the motions, but everything feels hollow, meaningless. I've lost my sense of purpose. my direction. The anger that once fueled me has burned out, leaving behind only a deep, aching emptiness. Rachel and I go through the motions of being a married couple, but it's all an act. We both know it's over, that there's no coming back from this, but neither of us is willing to say it out loud. The silence between us is heavy, suffocating, but it's easier than facing the truth. One evening, as I'm sitting alone in my study, Rachel comes in, her expression determined. "We need to talk," she says, her voice steady. I nod, bracing myself for what's coming. She sits down across from me, folding her hands in her lap. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I think it's time we face the truth. We can't keep pretending like this, like we can just go back to how things were." I look at her, the woman I've spent the past 15 years with, and I feel a pang of sadness. She's right, of course. We've been living in denial, avoiding the inevitable. "I know," I say quietly. "But what do we do?" She hesitates, then takes a deep breath. I think we need to separate, for Josh's sake, if nothing else. We can't keep putting him through this." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but deep down, I know she's right. We've been holding on for the wrong reasons, and it's time to let go. "I agree," I say, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "It's the only way." We sit in silence, the weight of the decision settling over us. It feels like the end of something important, something that once meant everything to both of us. But it's also a relief, a release from the constant tension, the unspoken resentment that's been building between us. We decide to tell Josh together, to try and make him understand that this isn't his fault. The conversation is one of the hardest things I've ever done, and the look of betrayal in his eyes is something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. As the days go by, Rachel and I begin the process of untangling our lives, dividing up the years we've spent together. It's painful, but there's also a sense of closure, a finality that's oddly comforting. I throw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the emptiness that's settled in my chest. But even work doesn't hold the same appeal anymore. The satisfaction I once got from winning cases, from outmaneuvering my opponents, is gone. I go through the motions, but my heart isn't in it. One evening, after a particularly long day, I come home to find Rachel packing. She's moving out, taking the first steps toward our new separate lives. She looks up as I walk in, and for a moment we just stare at each other, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. "I guess this is it," I say, my voice hollow. She nods, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yeah, I guess it is." We don't say goodbye, not really. There's nothing left to say. She leaves, and I'm alone in the house that once felt like a home, now just an empty shell. The silence is deafening. In the weeks that follow, I try to rebuild, to find some semblance of normalcy. But the scars run deep, and I'm left questioning who I've become. The man I was before all of this is gone, replaced by someone I barely recognize. But even as I grapple, the house is empty now. Rachel moved out a week ago, taking the last of her things. Josh is with her tonight, part of the arrangement we've agreed on. The silence is oppressive, thick with the weight of everything that's happened. I walk through the rooms, each one echoing with memories that I can't escape, no matter how hard I try. I stop in the living room, where Rachel and I had our last conversation, the one where she finally admitted the truth, not just about the affair, but about everything else she'd been hiding. The secrets she'd kept locked away for years, secrets that shattered the last remnants of whatever bond we still had. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said, her voice trembling as she confessed. "It wasn't just the affair. There were other things I couldn't bear to admit, even to myself." She looked so small, so fragile in that moment, and for a brief second, I felt a surge of pity, but it was quickly swallowed by the cold, hard truth. She'd lied to me for years, deceived me in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And as much as I wanted to understand, to forgive, I knew I never could. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "We're done, Rachel. There's nothing left to save." She didn't argue. She didn't even cry. She just nodded as if she'd known all along that this was where we were headed. And maybe she had. Maybe we both had. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Every meeting with the lawyers was a battle, each side hurling accusations and demands, trying to tear apart the life we'd built together. It was ugly, painful, but necessary. We both knew that. There was no going back. Now, standing alone in the living room, I try to make sense of it all. The anger, the betrayal, the relentless drive for revenge, it's all led me here, to this hollow shell of a life. I've won in a way. David is out of our lives. Rachel and I are done. And Josh, well, Josh is still here, still caught in the middle of this mess. But what have I really gained? The satisfaction of revenge? The hollow victory of tearing someone else down? It doesn't feel like a win. It feels like loss, like I've lost myself in the process. The doorbell rings, cutting through the silence. I'm not expecting anyone, and for a moment I hesitate, wondering if I should just ignore it. But something pulls me to the door, a sense of unfinished business that won't let me rest. When I open the door, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't Lila, David's wife, standing there with a tentative, almost hesitant expression on her face. "Can I come in?" she asks, her voice soft, almost pleading. I step aside, letting her in. She looks around the house, taking in the empty spaces, the boxes still stacked in corners, the signs of a life being dismantled. "I'm sorry to show up like this," she says, turning to face me, "but I needed to talk to you about everything." I nod, gesturing for her to sit down. She takes a seat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I know about what happened," she begins, her eyes meeting mine, "about David and Rachel. And I know about everything else." Her words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken accusations, with the weight of what we've both been through. "I didn't come here to accuse you or to drag up the past," she continues. I needed to understand. How did we get here? How did it all go so wrong?" I sit down across from her, trying to find the right words. How do I explain the spiral of events, the choices that led us both to this moment? "It wasn't just one thing," I finally say, my voice rough with emotion. "It was 1,000 little things, all piling up until they crushed us. The lies, the secrets, the betrayals. They all chipped away at what we had until there was nothing left." She nods, tears glistening in her eyes. "I feel the same way. Like I've been living a lie for years, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. And now it's all come crashing down, and I don't know how to pick up the pieces." For a moment, we sit in silence, two people who have been torn apart by the actions of those we trusted most. There's no easy way to bridge the gap between us, no magic words that can undo the damage that's been done. But there's something in her eyes, a glimmer of understanding, of shared pain, that makes me realize we're not so different. We've both been hurt, both been betrayed, and now we're left to pick up the pieces of our shattered lives. I don't know what comes next, I admit, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to move forward from this. "Neither do I," she says, a sad smile tugging at her lips. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's enough to just try, to start over, even if we don't know where we're going." Her words resonate with me, striking a chord deep within that I hadn't even realized was there. For so long, I've been focused on the past, on the wrongs that were done to me, that I haven't even considered the possibility of a future, of something beyond the pain and the anger. "Maybe you're right," I say, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time in what feels like forever. "Maybe it's time to stop looking back and start looking forward." She nods, and for a moment, there's a connection between us, a shared understanding that transcends the chaos that brought us here. It's not much, but it's a start. We talk for a while longer, sharing stories, memories, the things we've lost and the things we still hold on to. It's bittersweet, but it's also cathartic, like we're finally letting go of the weight that's been dragging us down. When she finally leaves, the house doesn't feel quite so empty anymore. There's still a lot to figure out, A lot of healing that needs to happen, but for the first time, I feel like it's possible. The days turn into weeks, and slowly I start to rebuild. It's not easy, and there are moments when the darkness threatens to swallow me whole, but I keep going. For Josh, for myself, for the possibility of something better. Rachel and I finalized the divorce. It's painful, but there's also a sense of closure, of an ending that needed to happen. We both agree to focus on Josh, to be the best parents we can be, even if we're no longer together. The final confrontation with Rachel is less of a battle and more of a quiet acceptance. We've both said all we needed to say, and there's nothing left but to move on. It's not the resolution I imagine, but it's the one we both need. One evening, after dropping Josh off at Rachel's, I find myself standing outside the house, looking up at the windows. The lights are on, and I can see them inside, going about their evening routine. It's a snapshot of the life I used to have, the life I thought I'd lost. But as I stand there, I realize that it's not about what I've lost. It's about what I still have, what I can still build. There's a future out there, waiting for me, and it's up to me to decide what it looks like. I turn away, walking back to my car, and for the first time in months, I feel a sense of peace. It's not perfect, and it's not easy, but it's a start. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. As I drive away, the past fades into the background, and the road ahead is open, full of possibilities. It's a new beginning, a chance to start over, and this time, I'm determined to make it count. I sit in my office staring out the window as the city moves on without me. The divorce is finalized, the papers signed and filed. The weight of it all hangs heavy in the air, like a storm that's finally passed but left destruction in its wake. I've spent months consumed by anger, driven by a need for revenge that ate away at my soul. Now, in the quiet aftermath, I'm left with the debris of a life I barely recognize. I think about the choices I made, the paths I chose to follow, the thrill of outmaneuvering David, of taking him down, still lingers in the back of my mind. But it's hollow, a victory that tastes like ash. I hurt people, my wife, my son, even myself, in ways that can't be undone. And for what? To prove a point? To make myself feel powerful in the face of betrayal? There's no satisfaction in it, only a deep gnawing emptiness that I can't seem to shake. Rachel and I barely speak now. When we do, it's about Josh, about how we're going to handle the holidays, the school meetings, the shared custody. It's civil, polite, but there's a coldness there that wasn't there before. We're both broken in different ways, and the pieces don't fit together anymore. Josh is quieter than he used to be, his bright, carefree spirit dimmed by everything he's seen. He looks at me differently, like he's trying to figure out who I am, who I've become. It hurts more than I expected it to, knowing that I'm the one who changed the way he sees the world. I try to be there for him, to make up for the mistakes I've made, but I know it's not enough. He needs more than I can give him right now. He needs stability, security, something I'm not sure I can provide. As I sit there lost in my thoughts, the phone rings. It's Lila. We've kept in touch, talking occasionally, sharing the burden of our shared pain. There's a comfort in it, in knowing that someone else understands what I've been through. "Hey," she says, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "How are you holding up?" I sigh, leaning back in my chair. "I'm surviving. Just trying to figure out what comes next." "Me too," she says, a note of sadness in her voice. "It's hard, isn't it? Trying to rebuild after everything's fallen apart." "Yeah," I say, my throat tight. "It is." We talk for a while, about nothing in particular, just filling the silence with words. It helps in a way to hear her voice, to know that I'm not completely alone in this. When we hang up, I sit there for a long time, thinking about the future. The past few months have changed me in ways I never expected. I'm not the man I was before this all started, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there's a glimmer of hope, a small spark that refuses to be extinguished. Maybe, just maybe, I can find a way to move forward, to rebuild something from the wreckage of my life. I look around the office at the files stacked on my desk, the reminders of the cases I've won, the battles I've fought. It used to mean something to me, this life I built, but now it feels empty, like I've been chasing shadows. Maybe it's time to let go of that too, to start fresh in every sense of the word. I stand up, grabbing my coat and keys. I don't know where I'm going, but I need to get out, to clear my head, to figure out what comes next. As I walk out the door, I feel a sense of finality, of closing a chapter in my life. The air is crisp, the city alive with the sounds of people going about their lives. I walk aimlessly, letting the rhythm of the city guide me, my thoughts swirling in a chaotic mess. I think about Josh, about the kind of father I want to be for him. He deserves better than what I've given him these past few months. He deserves a father who's present, who's there for him in every way that matters. I'm determined to be that for him, to rebuild the trust I've shattered. I think about Lila too, about the connection we formed in the midst of all this chaos. There's something there, something fragile and new, but I'm not sure if it's enough. We're both healing, both trying to find our way, and maybe that's what we need right now. Time to figure out who we are, apart from the people who hurt us. As I walk, I find myself standing in front of a small cafe, the kind of place I used to love before everything went to hell. I step inside, the warmth of the place a welcome contrast to the cold outside. I order a coffee, taking a seat by the window, watching the world go by. It's a simple moment, a quiet one, but it feels significant, like the beginning of something new. I take a sip of the coffee, savoring the taste, the warmth spreading through me. I don't know what the future holds, don't know if I'll ever fully escape the shadows of the past, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like there's a path forward, a way out of the darkness. As I sit there, I let myself imagine what that future might look like. A future where I'm not defined by the anger, the betrayal, the need for revenge. A future where I'm a better father, a better person, someone who's learned from his mistakes and is trying to be better. It's not going to be easy. I know that, but it's a start, and that's enough for now. I finish my coffee, standing up to leave. As I step outside, I feel the cold air hit my face, sharp and invigorating. I take a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs and start walking again. My steps more purposeful this time. I don't look back. There's no point in dwelling on what's already happened. The past is behind me and the future is waiting. As I walk away, I close the door on that old life, on the man I used to be. I'm ready to step into the unknown, to face whatever comes next. With a wary eye on the shadows that still linger, knowing that they'll always be there, but determined not to let them define me. It's time to move forward. It's time to start again.